When one of Hollywood's most acclaimed actors is met with unexpected hostility from a talk show host, it results in one of the most uncomfortable live television moments in recent memory. Harrison Ford, renowned for iconic roles like Han Solo and Indiana Jones, arrived on The View, anticipating a typical promotional interview. Instead, he encountered something entirely different. Before we get into what happened, be sure to hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments about how you feel this situation played out. The studio lights were glaring that morning as Harrison Ford took his seat across from the panel of hosts. He had gone through this routine countless times before, making appearances to promote his latest film to audiences around the country. The View was meant to be just another stop, a casual conversation about his work and upcoming projects. But right from Joy Behar's opening line, it became clear this interview would not go as expected. "Well, well, well, look who's here," Joy said with her usual smirk. Harrison Ford, the man who's built a career playing the same role over and over. The other hosts shifted awkwardly. This wasn't the friendly introduction they had planned during their production meeting. Ford's publicist, watching from just off stage, felt her stomach tighten. She had specifically asked the producers to keep things light and respectful. Ford's expression stiffened, though his tone stayed composed. "I think you may be confusing me with someone else, Joy. I've taken on a variety of roles throughout my career." "Oh, really?" Joy leaned in, clearly amused. "Let's see, you've played the grumpy pilot in Star Wars, the grumpy archaeologist in Indiana Jones, and the grumpy detective in Blade Runner. Looks like a bit of a trend, wouldn't you say?" The studio grew quiet. The audience sensed the rising tension. This wasn't the easygoing banter they expected from a daytime talk show. Ford glanced at the co-hosts, silently hoping someone would redirect the conversation, but no one did. "Joy, I'm here to discuss my new film," he said firmly, his tone now edged with warning. "Maybe we could stick to that, rather than whatever narrative you're pushing." But Joy didn't back down. If anything, she seemed more emboldened. "Narrative? I'm just calling it like I see it, Harrison. You've been relying on the same character types for years. When's the last time you really pushed yourself as an actor?" The question lingered in the air. Ford had dealt with challenging interviews before, but this felt different. This felt personal, like an attempt to undermine him publicly, right in front of a national audience. "You know what, Joy?" Ford began, his trademark calm starting to waver. "I've been in this industry for over 5 decades. I've collaborated with some of the most respected directors in film history. I've portrayed everything from working-class roles to heads of state, and not once have I felt the need to justify my career to someone whose job revolves around daytime gossip." The studio went quiet save for the soft mechanical whir of the cameras. Joy's cheeks flushed, but rather than stepping back, she pushed forward. "Gossiping? Is that how you see it?" she shot back. "I'm asking valid questions about your body of work. Questions your fans deserve answers to. Or are you just too arrogant to handle a bit of real critique?" Ford stood slowly, the scrape of his chair cutting through the silence like a blade. "Real critique? You're calling this an honest conversation?" he said sharply. "I've dealt with critics who actually understand cinema. You're not even close." "Sit down, Harrison," Joy snapped, her voice rising. "You don't get to throw your weight around just because you're some Hollywood name. This is my show and I'll ask what I please." "Your show?" Ford replied, his tone now low and biting. "Your show is a circus, Joy. You spend your time tearing down people who actually produce meaningful work, while offering little but hostility to the world. At least when I act irritable on screen, I'm being paid to perform." At this point, the other hosts finally stepped in, scrambling to calm the situation, but the damage was already done. Joy wasn't about to stay quiet. "You think you're above everyone else, don't you?" she retorted. "You think a few box office hits give you the right to look down on people? Let me clue you in, Mr. Ford. Your glory days are over and everyone sees it." Ford's hands clenched at his sides. For a brief moment it seemed he might fully lose his composure. The atmosphere in the studio grew thick with tension. Everyone in the room sensed they were witnessing a moment that would be discussed for years. The silence, after Joy's comment about Ford's fading relevance, was heavy, so much so that you could hear the audience collectively holding its breath. Ford's publicist signaled frantically to the production team, but they remained frozen, unable to intervene. This had gone beyond a tense exchange. It was now an unforgettable moment in television for all the wrong reasons. Ford turned slowly, locking eyes with Joy. His expression carried the same piercing intensity audiences had seen in countless films. But this wasn't a performance, this was real, and the emotion behind it was unmistakable. "My best days are behind me," he repeated quietly, though the weight of his words filled the room. "You want to talk about best days? Let's talk about yours. Were they when you were bombing on stage doing comedy no one laughed at? Or maybe when you clung to relevance by constantly attacking people who actually achieved something?" Joy's mouth opened in disbelief. She had clearly expected Ford to either walk away or remain silent. She hadn't expected such a direct and pointed response. "How dare you?" she stammered, her usual composure starting to slip. "You don't know anything about my career or my life." "I know enough," Ford replied sharply, still standing at the edge of the panel like someone laying out facts in a courtroom. "I know that whatever platform you've built rests on tearing others down. I know you sit behind this desk with a group of co-hosts, assuming it gives you cover to say whatever thoughtless thing crosses your mind. And I know that deep down you can't be happy, because people who are don't spend their time trying to belittle others." The other hosts appeared visibly shaken. This confrontation had gone further than anything they'd encountered on the show. Whoopi tried to interject with a light-hearted remark to ease the tension, but the moment she opened her mouth, both Ford and Joy turned toward her, cutting her off with sharp glances. "You think you can read my mind," Joy said, her voice trembling. Whether from anger or something else was unclear. "You don't know the first thing about me, you arrogant has-been." "Has-been," Ford let out a laugh, but it lacked amusement. "Joy, I earned more last year than you'll likely see in your entire career. My films are still showing in theaters worldwide, while you're here talking about celebrities to fill daytime programming. If I'm a has-been, then what does that make you? A never was?" An audible gasp came from the audience. Some viewers in the front row even covered their mouths in shock. This had moved beyond a professional disagreement. This was becoming personal, live and unfiltered, broadcast to millions. Joy's face flushed even redder as Ford's words settled over the room. "You think money is all that matters, don't you?" she snapped. "You think landing a few hit roles makes you untouchable? Lucky?" Ford's voice rose, the first true sign of emotion breaking through. The sound made everyone in the studio go still. "Let me explain something. I worked construction and took minor roles in forgettable films for years before anything changed. Every opportunity I've had came from persistence and effort, not luck. You want to talk about luck? How about landing a national TV gig without any real qualifications other than being willing to take shots at others on live TV?" From the control booth, producers were frantically motioning for a commercial break. But Joy wasn't paying attention. She had started this confrontation and now seemed intent on finishing it, regardless of the consequences. "At least I put effort into what I do," she shot back. "At least when I come to work, I try to be engaging, unlike someone who shows up, mumbles a few lines, and picks up a paycheck for playing the same role again and again." Ford stepped closer to the panel, and for a brief moment, it looked as though he might confront Joy directly. His face was red with frustration, and his hands trembled slightly at his sides. "Phoning it in? Is that what you think?" he said. "Take a look around this studio, Joy. This show is nothing more than a platform where you spend your day discussing other people's lives, because you apparently don't have much to say about your own. You call that effort? You call that engaging? This show is one of the most pointless segments on television, and you're the reason why." Joy rose from her chair, now standing eye to eye with Ford across the panel. The atmosphere turned tense, each of them locked in a standoff that left the entire studio frozen. "Leave," Joy said, her voice low and sharp. "Get out of my studio. We don't need you, your attitude, or your outdated movie star complex." "My studio?" Ford repeated, letting out a dry, unamused laugh. "This isn't your studio, Joy. It's a rented set for a daily talk show. You don't own any of this, maybe just that chair you've been sitting in for years." Adding nothing meaningful to the conversation, except perhaps making viewers feel worse about themselves. Camera operators kept rolling, capturing footage that was rapidly becoming some of the most intense ever aired on daytime television. This wasn't just a difficult interview, this was a full-blown public clash between two high-profile figures. Unfolding live, viewers could tell they were watching something extraordinary and unscripted. "You know what your problem is, Harrison?" Joy snapped, her tone rising with each word. "You can't stand that someone finally said what everyone's been thinking about your so-called career. You're not the hero you act like on screen. You're just another aging actor who can't accept that the spotlight's no longer on you." The statement landed hard. Ford's expression briefly faltered, and the color drained from his face. For a second he seemed genuinely affected, as if Joy had touched on something deeply personal. But the vulnerability quickly gave way to something else, a steady, focused anger that filled the room. It wasn't loud, but it was unmistakably present and unsettling. After Joy's harsh comment about Ford's relevance, a long silence followed. The moment stretched out, heavy and still. The hurt in Ford's eyes faded into a calm but chilling determination, an indication that he wasn't going to let the exchange end like this. The studio audience sat frozen, sensing that what came next would be the peak of this already volatile moment. When Ford finally spoke, his voice was quiet, barely above a whisper, but every word was clear, and every syllable carried the weight of 5 decades in the industry. His tone wasn't angry anymore. It was something far more resolute, shaped by experience and hard-earned perspective. "You want to know what people have really stopped caring about, Joy?" Ford continued. "People don't care about bitter, unoriginal personalities who build careers by putting others down. They don't care about comedians who never had much to offer in the first place. And they definitely don't care about your opinion on my career or anyone else's." Joy began to respond, but Ford raised his hand, and the gesture alone was enough to make her pause for the first time during the entire interview. "I'm not done," Ford said, his voice gaining clarity and purpose. "You asked me when I last challenged myself as an actor. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you challenged yourself to be a decent person? When did you last use this platform to lift someone up instead of tear them down? When did you look in the mirror and ask yourself whether you're contributing anything positive or just adding more negativity to the world?" The other hosts remained frozen, unsure of how to respond or even move. They were witnessing something that clearly went beyond the bounds of a typical live broadcast. The cameras kept rolling, capturing what was sure to become one of the most replayed moments in daytime television history. Joy's hands trembled now, whether from anger or something else wasn't clear. "You self-righteous hypocrite," she snapped. "You think you're better than everyone else just because you starred in a few movies? You think that gives you the right to lecture me?" "Moral authority?" Ford said, eyebrows raised. "Joy, I've never claimed to be any kind of moral authority. I'm an actor doing his job and trying to treat people with a baseline level of respect. But clearly, that's a high bar in your world. Respect has to be earned," Joy shouted. "And all you've earned is a reputation for being impossible to work with, demanding and difficult on every project you've ever touched." Ford chuckled this time, but the tone was different. Lighter, as if something had just clicked. "Difficult and demanding, you're not wrong," he said. "I am difficult when a director asks me to give a half-hearted performance. I am demanding when a producer tries to cut corners that affect the final product. That's because I care about the work, and I respect the audience enough to give my best, every single time." He paused, turning to face the camera directly for the first time during the interview. "And yes, I'm also difficult when people like you try to tear down what others have spent their entire lives building. So you're right, I am being difficult today. And I'll continue to be difficult, as long as basic human decency keeps getting ignored." Joy was visibly furious now. "Human decency? You're going to lecture me on human decency? You've spent the last 10 minutes insulting me and my career in front of a national audience. I'm responding to your attacks, Joy. That's not the same, Ford replied calmly. You started this by trying to take shots at me for no reason other than to stir controversy. Everything I've said has been in response to that. But here's what really concerns me about people who do what you do. Ford leaned in slightly, his voice lowering again. Despite the softness, it carried more weight than any raised voice could. You hide behind the claim that you're just asking tough questions or being honest. But that's not what this is. What you're really doing is trying to hurt people to feel powerful. You're using your position to provoke, not to contribute anything meaningful. And the worst part is, you might not even realize how much damage it takes on the inside to find satisfaction in tearing others down. For a brief moment, Joy's expression shifted. Ford's words appeared to hit a nerve. But just as quickly, her defenses returned. Don't try to psychoanalyze me, you arrogant fool, she snapped. You know nothing about me, nothing about my experiences or my reasons for doing what I do. You think one conversation gives you the right to judge me? One conversation, Ford echoed, surprised. Joy, this isn't about today. This is about a pattern. This is how you operate. Day in and day out on this show, you go after people, mock them, look for their flaws and push until something gives. Then when someone finally responds, you act as if you've been wronged. Backstage, the control room was in turmoil. Producers debated whether to cut to commercial, end the segment, or step in. But no one moved. The moment was too raw, too unexpected, and too public. You want to know what I really think? Ford continued, now clearly approaching his final point. I think you're resentful. I think you're angry at those who've managed to create something meaningful in their lives, while you've spent yours sitting in that chair, criticizing others and adding nothing constructive to the conversation. Joy shook with frustration. Resentful of what? She fired back. Your declining career? Your box office flops? Your struggle to stay relevant in an industry that's already moved past you? No, Joy, Ford said firmly. You're resentful that people remember my work fondly. That when they hear my name, they think of characters and stories that brought them joy, inspiration, and wonder. But when people think of you, what comes to mind? What impact have you had other than promoting negativity and divisiveness? The question lingered in the air, sharp and unfiltered. Joy opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. She tried again, but no words followed. For the first time during the entire segment, she had nothing to say. Ford nodded slowly, as if her silence confirmed what he already suspected. That's what I thought. You know, Joy, I came here to talk about a film I'm genuinely proud of. Something I hope brings people a couple of hours of escape from whatever they're going through. That's what I aim to do. Add a little bit of value, maybe even a bit of magic. He gestured around the studio, his frustration clear. But you take that sense of joy and tear it apart. You reduce things that bring people happiness into something meaningless, something to mock. And for what? For ratings. For attention. Or just the satisfaction of making others uncomfortable. Joy finally responded, but her voice was faint. You can't speak to me like this. You can't come on my show and attack me. Your show? Ford replied, his voice rising with purpose. This isn't a show, it's a public takedown masked as entertainment. It's a place where you and your panel pass judgment on anyone unfortunate enough to sit in that chair. Well, I'm not going to be one of them. I won't let you turn this into another spectacle. He began walking toward the edge of the stage, then stopped and looked back. You know what's truly unfortunate? You probably think you came out ahead today. That this confrontation made for great television. But all you've done is show everyone exactly who you are, and believe me, it's not flattering. Joy was now standing, pointing at him as he walked away. Don't walk away from me. Don't turn your back while I'm speaking. Ford paused, but didn't turn around. I'm not walking away from you, Joy. I'm walking away from what this show has become. A toxic space. I'm walking away from the kind of programming that drags people down, instead of lifting them up. And I'm walking away from the idea that tearing others apart is somehow acceptable entertainment. "You think you're better than us?" Joy called after him. "You think you're above this show, above me, above all of us? Let me tell you something, Mr. Movie Star. We don't need you. We never did." Ford finally turned to face her, and when he spoke again, his voice was calm, almost regretful. "You're right, Joy. You don't need me. But maybe you need to really look at what this has become, and ask yourself if this is the person you want to be. Because if this is it, I truly feel sorry for you." And with that, Harrison Ford walked off the set of The View, leaving behind a silent audience, speechless hosts, and one of the most memorable moments in daytime television. The cameras kept rolling as Joy stood frozen, pointing at empty space, her expression a mix of anger and embarrassment. The remaining hosts tried to recover the segment, but the moment had passed. The impact was irreversible, and everyone watching knew they had witnessed something that would be remembered for years. What's your take on this intense exchange between Harrison Ford and Joy Behar? Have you ever seen a moment like this play out on daytime TV? Share your thoughts in the comments and make sure to hit that subscribe button for more unfiltered, behind-the-scenes moments you won't find anywhere else. This is exactly the kind of raw, real interaction that reminds us, when the cameras are rolling, anything can happen.